Welcome to DreamBox. DreamBox is an online tool that helps students develop their number sense and is used to support a strong mathematics program. To get to this window, type in www.dreambox.com. From the Resources menu, select Teacher Tools. We'll work through a couple of the teacher tools to show you the power of what DreamBox really does for students. Let's go to the numbers to 10 on the 10 frame. One of the things that you'll notice immediately is that it says kindergarten, yet we know that this is probably something that our grade 1 students will benefit from as well. So when I click on this, I'm presented with, I've turned the volume off for this, by the way, I'm presented with a flash of number. One of the things that I want students to be able to do as a teacher is to identify the number as 6, yet I'm going to ask the class how they got 6. Some students might count by ones. Some students might see a row of 5 and then one more. Some students might see 10 less 4. So that provides you an opportunity to hear how students are constructing the number 6 from the model that's presented. Use the back button to go to the other tools. The next tool I'm going to show you is actually numbers to 20 on the Math Rec. For those of you who have participated in some of our system learning, you'll know that the Math Rec is also referred to as a Rec and Rec. Right away, again, I'm now starting to develop that sense of number beyond 10, and the Math Rec's power really is from adding and subtracting numbers to 20. So if I didn't see the card, I can show the card again, and I can leave it up there for students. This could be used on a whiteboard, this could be used using a projector with a document camera. It's not the answer that I'm concerned with as a teacher. I'm asking students, how did they get the number 15? Some may say 3 groups of 5, some may say 20 less 5, and the power of this tool is that really it's building on 5s. And you can see visually that each group of 5 has a different color. Now I've got a different number, 18. How did I get 18? That's an example that you might want to ask students. How did you get 18? Well, some students might see 3 groups of 5 and 3 more. Some students might see 20 and 2 less. Some students might see 10, 5, and 3. So it lets students compose and decompose numbers to 20. Let's look at some. Scrolling down to the 3rd grade addition and subtraction, again, be cautious of the terms here in terms of 3rd grade. This is an American standard and it is based on the Common Core curriculum. Yet I will show you how we can align it better to Canadian or Ontario standards. Let's look at subtraction on the number line using constant difference. Again, this is a free model that you can use at any time with your students. And one of the things that we want to do as teachers is to use the models that they're using in DreamBox in classroom activities to support that development of number sense. If you've attended the primary institutes, the junior institutes, the mental math, and possibly even the Congress learning opportunities this year, you'll know how powerful this is. One of the ways that we always talk about subtraction with students is we talk about takeaway. And if we think about subtraction as the distance between the 2 values, it's a different way for students to be able to see that and picture that mentally in their head. I know that the distance between 116 and 23 is the constant or the answer to this subtraction question. Now, that's a really difficult question for me to do in my head. Yet, if I'm able to move and shift both of those numbers to the left, I'll shift again and I'll shift again, I am now better able to think about what's the distance between 20 and 113. I could do 20 plus 80 is 100 and another 13. Oh, 93. Now I've subtracted that number using a model in my head, and that's really what mental mathematics is. I've got a model or a picture in my head that I can work with. Let's look at another example. The power of this model when you're working with students is I can move those values to the left or the right, which is more strategic. I could move to 70, and now I know that the distance between 70 and 159 is 89. Now, had I moved the other direction, students may start to make the number 150. They think that's a friendly number. It's still difficult for me to make that jump in my head. What is the counting piece? I could move it to 60. It's still going to be 89. So it's a great opportunity for students to talk about whether they move the values to the left or to the right, and then reason why that's easier for them to see. So why DreamBox? If any of you are familiar with some of the other online learning tools for mathematics like Prodigy or IXL, those programs really provide one question for a student. If we all answer it the same way, we get the same next screen. If we answer it incorrectly, we get the same next screen. DreamBox is very different. If you have the opportunity to walk into a classroom using DreamBox already, you'll notice that students are all on different places within the program. The screens that are presented to students really capture the information on how they are answering questions. So let's use this as an example. If the question on DreamBox is 2 plus 5, I might, as a student, slide each of these beads over one at a time. So I might do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. My answer is 7. I'll enter the answer as 7, yet DreamBox will recognize that I'm counting by ones. As I mentioned earlier, the significance of this reckon rec is that students start to develop a very good understanding that if I push these 5 beads over at a time, I now have 5. And it really builds on the 5 and 10 frame examples that we were using earlier. So if a student answers this question by pushing 5 beads and then pushing 2 beads, then the student answers 7, it provides DreamBox with other information about how the student's answering questions. Now, remember the question was 2 plus 5. So right away that student also knows that 2 plus 5 is the same as 5 plus 2. And that is very high level thinking for this type of question. Some kids can even push 7 beads over right away because they understand how that mental picture corresponds to the addition. So what about the Ontario curriculum? If you go to the product overview, you'll notice that there's a tab for curriculum. The Ontario curriculum is cited. It's a PDF that you can actually print out that shows the curriculum alignment from DreamBox with the Ontario curriculum. More powerful, when you go back, you'll see that under curriculum again, DreamBox Learning Unit Description Guide. This is very powerful for you as a teacher in that it lets you see the types of models that students are working with in different learning environments and the reason for using those models. So if I'm going to compare the numbers 1 to 10, the reckon rec might be a way that I'm using a comparison. It has 10 frames. You'll notice it has the reckon rec again, building up to 20. Using 10 frames for numbers up to 100. Place value. There's an opportunity for students to explore place value. Compensation buckets. Constant difference, that very powerful model we talked about earlier. Multiplication and division. There are arrays available in here. Here are the arrays that students use, and they actually construct the arrays based on how they want to break numbers apart. Very powerful. Now, this one here is actually fractions in the real world. One of the things that we've learned from talking with teachers in the system is that Some of the students are confused with whether to use time or money for fractions. They're provided with two options, and students make the choice. Now, when you think about money, money is in terms of hundreds, and when you think about time, it's easier in working with twelfths because of the nature of the clock. So students are selecting the tool based on the numbers they're presented. The other thing to keep in mind is, yes, it's American coins, and there is a 50-cent piece. And ironically, no one in the United States really uses 50-cent pieces either. Yet, just something to keep in mind as students are working with those models. There are fractions, and there are also some other pieces that would be helpful to be aware of. Multiplying fractions, not in the curriculum, so you won't be going to that piece. Our students won't be using that. In grade 6, in the 6th grade modules, you'll notice that there are integers on a number line. Now, we don't add and subtract integers or even order and compare integers till grade 7 in our curriculum, yet there are negative numbers that are presented to students when they're working in some of the grade 6 learning environments. This use of integers is really just a greater than or less than positive or negative. It's not asking students to work with those numbers in any capacity. And we do recognize that students see integers on thermometers and have a good understanding of positive and negative numbers prior to learning about them in grade 7. To familiarize yourself with what students will see, you can go to Experience DreamBox, and you'll see that there are two sections, primary and intermediate. Intermediate is not our intermediate. Intermediate is the US grades 3, 4, and 5. And our students that are junior will probably be working in the intermediate environment. Our students that are primary will be working in the primary learning environment. We will set up all classes one grade level below the Canadian grade level. And this allows students to get familiar with the program and start to work with the tools and develop some sense of how to work with the tools. And they will be prompted to progress very quickly based on how they're answering the questions within DreamBox in the pre-assessment lessons that they're given. Finally, some learning videos that would be really helpful to watch prior to having this in your classroom. If you go to if you go to resources and videos, you'll see that Kathy Fosno has a video here. And it talks about the power of DreamBox in developing number sense. And it talks about how the program is set up to support a concept of multiplication, for example. The other one that's really powerful to watch is the Seamless Formative Assessment video. Again, it's Kathy Fosno, who is an author of some of the context for learning resources that are being used in our system. And she's also the content editor advisor for DreamBox. So many of the pieces that we are doing in our system learning are very much aligned to the work that Kathy is doing. There are a wealth of resources available at the DreamBox website that might give you a better understanding of how to use the tool. There are teacher tools and some virtual manipulatives which we've seen. There are some white papers and some webinars. There are also some videos that support student learning with the use of DreamBox. One of the things that is very powerful is the connection for parents. We've asked that at the end of the first week of students using DreamBox in your classroom, that you communicate with parents in the letter provided and support them in understanding really the power of DreamBox using the explanations that I've gone through today. We are going to be offering some sessions in the fall in each region, Northwest and East, for parents to help understand the power of how DreamBox can be used to support their child in the classroom and at home. Thanks for taking the time to listen to the overview of DreamBox prior to having it in your classroom. If you have any questions, there are some further supports available. There's a DreamBox conference in chat that you can access, and there are program leaders that are assigned to your school that would be more than willing to come in and help. Thanks for your time, and have a great week.